p.m. on a Wednesday of exams week to hear Justice Katju speak. He's a very eminent speaker, so I'm sure you're going to have a lot of fun. I'm just going to give a very brief introduction. So Justice Katju was a former chairman of the Press Council of India. Before that, he was a judge at the Supreme Court in Delhi, and he has served as the Chief Justice of the Delhi and the Madras High Courts. And we are very honored to have him here. He's going to tell us about what is India and what's the future of India, and the blogs he writes and his views on various issues that are of relevant to politics and economic development. Over to him.
Friends, it's a privilege for me to be invited to Stanford because your university is renowned all over the world as a great center of higher learning. So I'm honored to be among you today. The topic I have chosen is what is India and whither India? Most of you are Indians here, and India has a population of 1.25 billion, whereas the world population, I believe, is 7 billion. So every fifth or sixth human being in the world is an Indian. So what happens in India is very important for the whole world. This topic I have chosen because there are a lot of myths and a lot of fallacies which are prevailing, which need to be cleared up. I have divided this talk, what is India and whither India, into two parts. First is what is India, second is whither India. So first I may mention about what is India. Any of you know what is India? You are all Indians. No, so I'll tell you. India is broadly a country of immigrants, like North America. The difference being that in North America, people came mainly from Europe over the last 300-400 years. In India, people have been coming for thousands of years. But it's a country of immigrants. My guess is that roughly 93-94% people living in India today are descendants of foreigners who came mainly from the northwest and to a lesser extent from the northeast. Why did people keep coming into India? It is elementary common sense. People migrate from uncomfortable areas to comfortable areas because everybody wants comfort. Now, in those days before the Industrial Revolution, there were agricultural societies everywhere. And India was a paradise for agriculture. Because what do you require for agriculture? You require level land, you require fertile soil, you require plenty of water for irrigation, etc. All this was in abundance in the Indian subcontinent. If you go from Rawalpindi to Bangladesh to deep south, into Tamil Nadu, all level land, fertile soil, you scatter some seeds and there's a bumper harvest. Why will anybody migrate from India to, say, Afghanistan, which is covered with snow 4 or 5 months in the year, which is rocky, mountainous, uncomfortable? Everybody wants comfort. So people kept coming mainly from the northwest into India for thousands of years. And nobody left India except on 2 occasions. One was around the 19th century during British rule, when the poor peasants from Gorakhpur and such places were sent as plantation laborers, indentured laborers to Fiji and Mauritius and Suriname, etc. That was one way. The others, you people, the highly qualified professionals who came from IITs and from medical colleges, who came in the engineers, doctors, in the, say, from the 60s or 70s onward. Otherwise, nobody left India. Why should we leave? It's so comfortable for agricultural society. And that is why, because India is broadly a country of immigrants, there is so much diversity in India. So many castes, so many religions, so many languages, so many ethnic groups, so many cultures. Somebody is tall, somebody is short, somebody is fair, somebody is dark. There are differences in eating habits, dress habits, and so on. Because whichever group of immigrants came, they brought their own language, their religion, their culture, and so on. So that explains the tremendous diversity in the Indian subcontinent. If you compare India with, say, China, see, we have a population of 1.25 billion. China is a little more. It's perhaps 1.35 billion. And their land area is maybe 2.5 times our land area. But there is broad homogeneity in China. Not absolute homogeneity, but broad homogeneity. All Chinese have a mongoloid face. There is one common written script called Mandarin, and in fact Mandarin is the official language, is the spoken language also in much of China, though there are some different dialects also. But there is broad homogeneity in China. In contrast, India has tremendous diversity, which is because it's broadly a country of immigrants. And so the only policy which can work in India, which can lead to progress in India, is the policy of secularism, giving equal respect to all communities, all sects, all lingual, ethnic groups, etc. This was the policy of the great Emperor Akbar, whom I regard the real father of the nation of India. Not this fake Mahatma, Gandhi, about whom a myth has been created that he gave independence to India, he was the father of the... It's all false. You people have been all taught wrong things. Gandhi did a lot of damage to India, which I will explain shortly. The real father of the nation was great Emperor Akbar, who gave equal respect to all religions, all communities, etc. And the foundation on which Akbar built, that is the foundation on which the Indian heritage is still standing. Now, I have explained all this in my article, What is India, which is, you can see on my blog, justicekatju.blogspot.in, also called Satyam Bruyat. So many of these things which I am speaking are all on my blog, which you can see when you have time. But I will briefly mention about it. Now, having said this about India, I want to remove certain myths. Firstly, it is totally false to say that in ancient India we had aeroplanes, we had atom bombs, we had guided missiles. People talk nonsense, you make a laughing stock of yourself. People say, look at the Indians. Every child knows that the first aircraft was invented by the Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright in 1903 in America. And you say in ancient India there were aeroplanes. See, if there were aeroplanes in ancient India, then aeroplane runs on an engine, which means in ancient India there were engines. And if there were engines, why was the Mahabharata war fought on chariots, on the Rath? It should have been fought on tanks. It is all nonsense. It is true, in Ramayana there is mention of Pushpak Viman, that Lord Ram, after defeating Rama, he brought Sita from Lanka to Ayodhya on Pushpak Viman. But you must understand that what is Ramayana? Ramayana is an epic poem, Mahakavya. And a poet has what is known as poetic license, which means he has the right to exaggerate. So don't take these things literally. This is poetry. What is mentioned in Ramayana, not all to be taken literally that Pushpak Viman means that there was aeroplane in India, then you say there were atom bombs in ancient India and there were guided missiles. It's all rubbish. This is not true. The real great achievements of your ancestors, you are totally unaware of, which I am just going to tell you. But the fake claims you people boast about and make a laughing stock of yourself before the whole world. What are the real achievements of your ancestors? Let me tell you I'll just give you a very few of them. You will understand. Let me tell you about the decimal system. See, the ancient Romans, who built a very great civilization, the civilization of Caesar and Augustus, they felt very uncomfortable with numbers above 1000 because they wrote their numbers in alphabets. 1 was I, 5 was V, 10 was X. You would be knowing all this. 50 was L, 100 was C, 500 was D, 1000 was M. M stands for millennium or 1000. There was no alphabet which could express a higher number than M. So if an ancient Roman had to write 2000, he had to write MM. If he had to write 3000, he would have had to write MMM. And if he wanted to write 1 million, he would have to write M 1000 times. He would go crazy like that. They never knew the concept of zero. You see, these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, they don't really exist. What exists is 1 table, 2 chairs, 3 men, 4 trees. These exist in the objective universe. 1, 2, 3, 4 is a pure abstraction. It doesn't exist in the objective universe. And then further flight of imagination, imagining a number 0, the Europeans could never achieve. They did not have the brains to give a further flight of imagination, which was achieved by Indians. You know, these decimal systems, the Europeans called them Arabic numerals, but the Arabs themselves called them Hindu numerals. Today, of course, every child knows the decimal system. Now, are they really Arabic or Hindu? The answer is that they are Hindu because, you see, these languages, Arabic, Persian, Urdu, they are all written from right to left. If you have any friends, Arab, Persian or Muslim who knows Urdu, he will write his language from right to left. But if you ask any of them to write any number, just make that experiment. Ask them to write 257 or 1453, any number chosen at random. They will write the number from left to right. Now, what does this indicate? The language they are writing from right to left, but the numbers they are writing from left to right. It indicates that these numbers were taken from a language which was written from left to right. And now it is admitted that the Arabs took them from India and then passed them on to the Europeans. And because we invented the concept of zero, it was such a revolutionary achievement for those times. Without that, human progress would have been very slow. We achieved, invented the concept of zero because of which we could write astronomical numbers. For example, 1000 Sahasra, 1 plus 3 zeros. You add 2 more zeros, it becomes 1 lakh. 2 more zeros, it becomes 1 crore. 2 more zeros, it becomes 1 Padma. 2 more zeros, it becomes 1 Nil. 2 more zeros, it becomes 1 Shank. 2 more zeros, it becomes 1 Mahashank. You know, you keep on adding 2 zeros, and for each of these huge numbers, there is a specific name. Whereas, as I told you, the ancient Romans felt very uncomfortable after the number 1000, which was expressed by him, because they had no concept of zero. This was one of the greatest revolutionary inventions in ancient times, because of which mankind took a huge step forward, and it was invented by India. This is your real achievement, of which you are unaware. The real great achievement of your ancestors, you are unaware. Plastic surgery, for instance, was invented by Sushruta 2000 years ago. In plastic surgery, you don't use plastic. What you do is you take one part of the body and transplant it. For example, you take a vein from the leg and you put it on the heart for the bypass, in the heart, so that the blood does not have to go through the blockage, it can go through this. This was discovered by Sushruta 2000 years ago. The Europeans discovered it only perhaps 200 years back. So, take for example the alphabets. I'm telling you very, very simple things. A, B, C, D up to Z. Very simple. Now, there is no system here. Why is B followed by C? Why is E followed by F? Why is P followed by Q? Why is N followed by O? There's no reason, all jumbled up haphazardly. Now, just compare it with what Panini, perhaps the greatest grammarian the world has ever done, did in his book called Ashtargaya. I'm not going through the whole of it, it's very long. In his first 14 sutras, he writes down the alphabets in a scientific manner. For example, the cover, the consonants he takes in sequences of 5 each. Cover are the sounds all coming from the throat. Ka, 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 ga, ga. This is known as a cover. Then chavar, all sounds coming from the middle of the tongue. Cha, cha, ja, cha, ya. See, he studies where these sounds are coming from, which part of the face sounds are coming from. Cover, ta, tha, da, tha, na. All sounds coming from the roof of the mouth. Ta, tha, da, tha, na. All sounds coming from the tip of the tongue. Pa, pa, ba, ha, ma. All coming from the lips. And these are all arranged scientifically in a sequence of 5 consonants each. And depending from which part of the face the sound is coming. And in these 5 sequence of 5, the second and the fourth consonant will always be an aspirant. What is the meaning of an aspirant? Aspirant means a letter in which h is added. It is combined with h. For example, ka plus h is kha. Ga plus h is gha. So the second and fourth consonant in each of the sequence of 5 will always be an aspirant. Like for instance, ta, tha, da, tha, na. So ta plus h, tha is an aspirant. Da plus h, dha is an aspirant. There are no aspirants in my language, Kashmiri. There are no aspirants in Tamil. And there are very few aspirants in English also, except like thing, or otherwise very few aspirants in English language also. But there are aspirants in the Sanskrit language. So what I'm trying to tell you is such a simple thing like arrangement of alphabets is done in such a scientific manner by Panini. And I can give you hundreds of other examples to show the great achievements of our ancestors, the real achievements. About those you are totally ignorant, and you talk nonsense that in ancient India there was aeroplane and atom bomb. You know, I went to a place called Akshardham in Delhi. I don't know whether any of you have been there. It's a temple in Delhi, just across the Jamuna. Huge temple. And I went there, they were very nice to me, the priests and all. They showed me. There's also a tunnel, you go on a boat on water through a tunnel, and on the way you see, Panini lecturing on grammar, Sushrut lecturing on plastic surgery and so on, which are all correct. Aryabhat on mathematics. Aryabhat was one of the greatest mathematicians the world has seen. But I also saw one place where there was a scene of an aeroplane being. So I went to the head priest and I said, see, all the other things which you have shown are correct. We did invent the decimal system. We did invent plastic surgery. We did invent the best kind of most scientific grammar in the world. But you are diluting the whole thing by showing something which is false. We never invented the aeroplane. Now by showing this, you are the real great achievements are being diluted and washed away, and you make yourself a laughing stock before the whole world. People say, what big idiots these Indians are, they talk nonsense. So remove this aeroplane. Why should you show something which is not true, which is not your achievement? Certainly show things which are your achievement, but not the false things. I don't know what they did there. India had developed a massive handicraft industry before the coming of the British. More than 30% of the world trade was from India. Today it is hardly 2 or 3%. We were a very prosperous country before the British came to India. See, the level of development of a country is one broad test is how much percent population is in industry and how much percent in agriculture. The more percent in agriculture, the more backward the country is. Like in the USA, hardly 2% people are in agriculture. But of course, those 2% produce so much food they can feed the whole world. In India, before the coming of British, we had 30 to 40% of our people engaged in industry. Mind you, it was not mill industry, it was handicraft industry. But there was a massive handicraft industry before the coming of the British. In India, our silk, our cotton, our handicrafts, our spices, they used to go through the Middle East right up to Europe. And India was a very prosperous country at that time. When the British came to India, after the Battle of Plassey in 1757, what happened was the Britishers, before that were only merchants, businessmen, traders. But after 1757, they were transformed from merchants to rulers because the Diwani of Bengal was given to the British after the Battle of Plassey in 1757 by the Mughal Emperor. And therefore, from 1757 onwards, the British were transformed from merchants to rulers. And thereafter, they set about totally destroying our handicraft industry. And the way they did it was, firstly, they imposed very high export duty on our exports of textiles, etc., so that they would become prohibitively expensive and nobody would be able to buy them. And their own import duty of the mill industry was reduced to almost zero, so that easily they could flood the Indian market. And thereby, the population of India, which was maybe 30 to 40% engaged in industry before the British came, went down to about 10% by the time the British left in 1947. So, what happened to the remaining 30% who became unemployed? They lost their livelihood because the whole textile, the whole handicraft industry collapsed. This 30% of the Indian population became beggars, criminals, robbers, these thugs and pedaris, and so on. There were massive famines in India. In 1770, there was a famine in which 10 million people were killed died of starvation in Bengal, which was 1/3 of the population of Bengal. And there were regular famines because, earlier the king had a duty of maintaining the irrigation system and so on, which the British did not bother about it, fell into decay. In the right up to 1943, when the Great Bengal Famine occurred, in which 3 million Bengalis, just in one province in India, 3 million people died of starvation because their food was taken away by the British. So people, I once went to the German embassy, I was invited there, and I said, you people are accused of killing 6 million Jews in gas chambers. True, that was a terrible thing. But the British did something 10 or 20 times worse, killing more than 100 million people by starving them. And nobody talks about it. It's all forgotten because they got away with it. The Germans were found because the concentration camps and all were found by the Allied armies. But the British have nobody talks about it. More than 100 million people of India died of starvation because of what the British policies were. And they have just got away with it. So, you can see that on my blog, Dinner at the German Embassy, which is again here on my blog. All these things I have already posted. So, I said that 100 million Indians are being made to starve to death because of British policies. Nobody talks of it because the color of the skin of Indians is brown or black. So there are insects or worms Whereas the Jews who were sent to gas chamber, they had white skins, so therefore it's a terrible thing. Both are terrible, but this is even more terrible, what was done to our people. But because their color of the skin is brown or black, so it doesn't matter. They are dispensable people. But this is what was done by the British. From India, which was a prosperous country before the British came into India, became a poor country. Our trade fell from 30% of the world trade to hardly 2 or 3%, which it is today. The British policy was not to let India industrialize. They later permitted some textile industries, some plantation industry, but they did not permit us to set up heavy industries because otherwise we would have become a big competitor to British industry, which the Britishers did not want. So they kept us backward, poor and feudal, and basically agricultural. The British policy was also of divide and rule. See, before 1857, there were no communal problems. Hindus and Muslims lived together peacefully, they helped each other. There were differences, but there was no hostility among them. What happened was in 1857, the Great Mutiny broke out in India. And in that, the Hindus and Muslims jointly fought against the British. After suppressing the mutiny, the British decided that the only way to control the Indian subcontinent is by divide and rule, which means by making Hindus and Muslims fight with each other. The deliberate policy came from England, and you can see it on Google, History in the Service of Imperialism, which is a speech given by Professor B.N. Pandey in the Indian Raj Sabha. You can see it right now, History in the Service of Imperialism. And he has given the citation of the letter which came from London to the Viceroy in India that you must make Hindus and Muslims fight with each other. So all communal riots start after 1857. The British collector would secretly call the Hindu Pandit, give him money and tell him to speak against Muslims. And similarly, he would call the Muslim Maulvi, give him money and tell him to speak against the Hindus. Then agent provocateurs were hired. Agent provocateur means somebody who is a hireling. And his job was to create mischief, that when the Muslims are at prayer in a mosque, start playing music loudly so that they are disturbed, or throw a carcass of a cow into a Hindu temple and paint on the wall on the night, Allahu Akbar, so that if Hindus may think Muslims are doing this, make them fight with each other. In 1909, the Minto Mole reforms were enacted, which provided for separate electorates. Hindus will vote separately, Muslims will vote separately. Again, divide and rule. Then Aligarh Muslim University was set up. Banaras Hindu University was set up. How can a university be Hindu or Muslim? A university means something universal. Your Stanford University, is it Christian, is it Hindu, is Muslim? It is for everybody. But the whole game was, the Hindus and Muslims must be made to fight with each other. And all this poison was injected into our society year after year, decade after decade by the Britishers through their agents. And in fact, I called Gandhi and Jinnah also agent of the British, because if you read Mr. Gandhi's speeches and articles, they are all in the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi, which is a Government of India publication, in several volumes. From 1915, when he came to India from South Africa, up to 1948 when he was killed. For 33 years, in almost almost every article of speech, Gandhi propagates Ramraj, Go Raksha, cow protection, Varnashram, caste system. He may talk against untouchability, but he favors caste system. Then Brahmacharya, all Hindu religious ideas. Now see, if you are a saint, sadhu sitting in an ashram, you may say whatever you like. But once you enter into politics,